So the first question that we have taken is inspired from a news article which has appeared in The Hindu. Owaisi to undertake Padayatra in Bihar's Seemanchal region. So when you read words like these denote something. These are regions in India. You might belong to any place in our country. You might belong to any state in our country. Wherever you go, you belong to a particular region within that particular state. And it is important from the perspective of prelims examination to know about some of the famous such regions. Because if you look at it, in 2016, UPSC had framed locations and which of the regions did they belong to. And so you can see Bagelkhand, Bundelkhand, Vidarbha, Malwa, Rayalaseema. And so we have formulated a similar but a differently worded question, regions demanding statehood and features of the region. Why these regions are famous for? So for the first statement is Gorkhaland. The region was created as a result of a peace accord signed in 2003. Now this is of course incorrect because Gorkha land is a proposed or demanded state in India which is mainly inhabited by Gorkha community. And if you're reading the newspaper, you might have realized that the movement for a separate Gorkhaland state has been ongoing for several years and it was not created as a result of a peace accord signed in 2003, which is what happened with Bodo land, for which the statement is the region is also known for its traditional handicrafts including the famous Chanderi and Maheshwari sarees, which is of course incorrect because it is an autonomous region in the Indian state of Assam which is mainly inhabited by the Bodo people. The region was created as a result of a peace accord signed in 2003 between the Indian government and Bodo militias. Whereas of course Bundelkhand is not famous for tea plantations. It is known for its rich cultural and historical heritage. It is famous for some tourist attractions like Khajuraho Temple, Orchha Fort, Jhansi Fort, Rani Mahal, Chanderi Fort, Panna National Park. But one thing it is not famous for, tea is not grown over there. Whereas Vidarbha is definitely known for production of cotton and soya bean, it is a region in the Indian state of Maharashtra which is rich for its cultural heritage and historical significance. Also, Rayalaseema, which belongs to Andhra Pradesh, is known for its arid landscape and rocky terrain, and it is indeed famous for the production of groundnut and chilies, and hence the right statement would be C, 4 and 5 only. The next article, retail inflation stays above 6%, is very important. Now if you analyze the previous year questions, there has been only one question so far about the trends of various indices. That was tax is to GDP ratio, but apart from that, there has never been a question on the trend of a particular indicator. And so, when a term like inflation appears in the newspaper, it is important for us to understand few of the basic things. For example, what exactly is inflation? What is the difference between inflation, deflation, disinflation? How is inflation measured? For example, CPI, WPI, what is the difference between them? For example, if you look at this question from 2020, the question specifically asked our deeper understanding of consumer price index and wholesale price index, and hence we have formulated a question for you. The first statement being consumer price index captures changes in price of food products and services. Now this statement is obviously correct. Consumer price index captures changes in price of food products and services like education, transportation. Apart from that, it also has certain other commodities like common intoxicants like tobacco as well as alcohol. Second statement says wholesale price index is released by Labor Bureau. Now this statement is obviously incorrect because wholesale price index is released by Office of Economic Advisor and not Labor Bureau. Third statement, under wholesale price index, more weightage is given to food products and beverages as compared to consumer price index is obviously incorrect. Because wholesale price index includes three things: primary articles, manufactured products, and fuel and power, out of which highest weight is given to the manufactured products and not the food and beverages. And hence, if the question is which of the statement given above is are correct, the right answer would be D, 1 only. The next article, A Fragile Momentum, talks about index of industrial production. And as we have discussed in the last question itself, The important indices released by the Government of India are very, very crucial for the civil services preliminary examination. And index of industrial production is one such index, which basically shows the growth rates in different industry groups in the economy in a stipulated period of time. And hence, it becomes important for us. And if you look at the previous year questions, just like in case of inflation, questions on the indices have been asked multiple times. For example, in 2015, we have had two questions. Index of 8 core industries, which one of the following is given the highest weight? And the second question the same year was, which of the following brings out the CPI or Consumer Price Index number for industrial workers? And hence the question for practice. With reference to index of industrial production, consider the following statements. Statement 1, it is published by the Office of Economic Advisor, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Now this is obviously incorrect because the data is released by NSO, National Statistical Office. Whereas the second statement, amongst different categories of goods, IIP gives highest weightage to primary goods, is also incorrect because the highest weightage out of all the categories under IIP, the highest weightage is given to refinery products and not to the primary goods. India remains world's largest importer of arms, says SIPRi. So India has remained the world's largest arms importer for the 5-year period between 2018 and 2022, even though its arm imports dropped by 11%. Now, from the perspective of prelims examination, these important indices which are released globally by important global institutions become very, very important. For example, this question in 2019 talked about Global Competitiveness Report, the answer to which was, of course, World Economic Forum. And so we have framed a question, Trends in International Arms Transfer 2022, a report on global arms transfer has been released by which of the following organizations? And so the right answer is Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, or SIPRi. Antiquities abroad, what Indian international laws says. So an investigation by Indian Express in association with International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and Finance Uncovered has found that the catalogue of Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York includes at least 77 items with links to Subhash Kapoor, who is serving a 10-year jail term in Tamil Nadu for smuggling antiquities. And in this regard, the article mentions Antiquities and Art Treasures Act 1972. And if you look at the previous year questions, you can see that the questions are often asked on important acts dealing with various sectors. So there have been questions on Wildlife Protection Act, there have been questions on Forest Right Act, there has been question on Biodiversity Act, but apart from environment also, there has been a question on Indian Patents Act as well. The right answer to which, of course, was 3 only. And so we have formulated this question for you. Consider the following statements with reference to the Antiquities and Art Treasures Act 1972. Statement 1. The Act defines an antiquity as an object or manuscript of historical interest that has been in existence for not less than 100 years. Now this is of course not correct, because the Antiquities and Art Treasures Act defines an antiquity as any coin, any sculpture, any painting, any epigraph, or other work of art or craftsmanship, any article, object, or thing detached from a building or cave, any article, object, or thing illustrative of science, art, crafts, literature, religion, customs, morals, or politics in bygone ages. Now, this statement is incorrect because for manuscripts, the age is not 100 but 75 years. So, if an manuscript is older than 75 years, that will be, or that can be, categorized under this act. But for other objects and items, they have to be older than 100 years. The second statement, antiquities can be sold only under a license that is granted by Archaeological Survey of India, is obviously correct. Whereas the third statement, under the provisions of Antiquities Art Treasures Act 1972, the ASI administers archaeological sites and remains of national importance, is obviously incorrect because ASI was founded under a different legislation, which was the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958. And so, the right answer would be C, 1 and 3 only. This last question for today, EPFO extends deadline to May 3 for employees opting for higher pension, has appeared in the Indian Express. So 10 days after the application window for higher pension closed for employees who had retired before September 1, 2014 and had exercised joint options with employers but whose options were not considered earlier, EPFO has announced a renewed deadline for them. And in this regard, EPFO becomes very, very important. If you look at it, such bodies have been earlier tested as well, because in 2022 there was a question on T-board. The answer in that case was D, 1 and 4 only. Now the question that we have framed for you is with reference to Employees Provident Fund Organization, consider the following statements. First, EPFO is a statutory body, which is obviously correct because EPFO, although initially was enacted through an ordinance, but later on it was established through a legislation which is known as Employees Provident Fund Act of 1952. Statement 2 says the act and schemes framed thereunder are administered by the Board of Directors, which is incorrect because the act and schemes framed thereunder are administered by a tripartite board known as Central Board of Trustees, Employees Provident Fund consisting of representatives of government, both central and state, employers and employees. Third statement says the board operates 3 schemes: EPF Scheme 1952, Pension Scheme 1995 and Insurance Scheme 1976, which is obviously correct, whereas the fourth statement is incorrect, which says it is under the administrative control of Ministry of Finance, which is obviously untrue because EPFO is under the administrative control of Ministry of Labour and Employment. And hence the right answer is A, 1 and 3 only.